Because in 10 minutes, I would like to answer the question, what is love? And I think we need God's help to ask and answer that question. Because if you look in society, you see a big series of carnages and just the incredible trauma of people not experiencing love as God would ordain it. And instead, there's just hurt. There's an old line from the 1990s song, "What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more." Okay, I want to be theological as well as practical. If we're going to summarize in 10 minutes what love is, I want to look at two aspects of it. Love that is embodied by a crush, eros is the Greek term, and love that is embodied by the cross, agape, the Greek term as well. And one thing that Benedict XVI said in the mid-2000s was that you need both to have a fully human experience. There's always going to be certain crushes that we have, but there's always the need to carry the cross. He likens this one side of love as something that ascends. There's a liftedness when we feel a certain way. And Christians do not somehow crush that, eros. At the same time, there's an agape, there's this descent of love, that we can get close to people, even people we don't like, even people who are disgusting. They can be served in love as a choice. So there's both the ascent and the descent of love. And that's a very incomplete, a simplification, so to speak. But I think it helps us see it. So let's start maybe the journey on this side. Maybe it was middle school, maybe you weren't looking for anything, and there was sort of an innocence, I pray, but there was something of a crush that you probably experienced. Now, most people do. And what happens there is that there's something outside of ourselves that we seem to find a blessing. You know what I mean? There's a fittingness, there's a desire to get to know this person, to befriend this person, so on and so forth. But anytime we're talking about a crush, it will eventually be crushed. It will end. Maybe that happens to breakup. Maybe you never get that far. Maybe it happens in marriage when there's sort of a disillusionment that happens and you ask yourself, this is not the person I thought I was marrying. And there's that disillusionment. But we'll get to that later. There's great ways to triumph through that. But if nothing else, if you've had a very blessed life, a blissful life, and you're sacramentally married and it's never been bad, eventually your spouse is going to die. Or you're going to die, and that's going to be hard for your spouse. And so any human love of a romantic sort will be crushed at one point or the other. We just have to admit that. Then we get out of sort of this false reality, this infatuation that can really beguile us. So, but here's the good news, that type of passion is not inherently bad. That type of passion can lead to a different passion. Let's call it a capital P passion. This is embodied in the passion of Jesus Christ. He who was madly in love with us, but who himself chose to be crushed, so that we could experience an overflow of a greater love, a love that does not have to end in death or because of some other breakup. The beauty of Jesus' love, agape love, self-sacrificial love, a love unto death, is its love is not about me or himself, or you could say that, again, simplifying, that the type of crushed love is about us, how we feel when we're around that person. But in agape love, the love of the cross, it's about the other. What do they need? How can I be of service to them? I'm not advocating for doormat codependency. I'm not advocating for burnout or love. We have human limits. But there is a sense in which we can go beyond ourselves. And it's agape that will actually be the way to go for that. This is where love of our second reading is unconditional. It doesn't matter if they love us. It doesn't matter if they're worthy, so to speak, of our love. Now, certainly trauma, abuse, I'm not inviting that. But again, in a normal sense, When it says in the second reading, love is patient, love is kind, it is not jealous, it is not pompous, all of those things that we've heard perhaps a lot are really speaking, the word in Greek is agape. It's the self-sacrificial side of love that all those things are pointing to. Because we have to be honest. If you're dating someone, you're married to someone, you probably are jealous to some degree of their time. If they're always gone, you want them to be with you. Jealousy is inherent to the crushed side of love. It's actually not bad, because it's good that you spend time with a spouse. That's part of the communal life of marriage. But agape love is willing to say, if you need to go, you go. And it's unconditional. I'm not advocating a breakup of any marriage. I'm just saying there is an otherworldliness to agape love that is without reference to the things that we often cling to of this life. This type of love is the way that we can get beyond the problems that so beguile our society. And I don't have time to go into all this stuff, maybe certain ideologies, maybe the question, love is love. Well, what does that even mean? We're not going to have time to go into that in this homily. What I do want to say, however, is a little look at some of these words. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. It is not pompous. It is not inflated. It is not rude. All of these things I have not. All of these things I cannot do. I wonder if you can. Can you love without seeking your own interest? Can you love without being quick-tempered or brood over injuries? Can you love and not point out wrongdoings of others? When we love, do we always rejoice in the truth? Does our love bear all things, believe all things, hope, and endure all things? Does our love never fail? Or are there moments when we completely fail to love? This is a beautiful gift that God is trying to give us today. A gift through the cross. A gift to admit, as I admit to you today, that I cannot love in an agape, Christ-centered, cross type of way. I can't do that. But God can. And through the grace of God, the actual and sanctifying grace of God, I can be transformed. And you can too. And so the limits of our love, the love that is so conditional, and maybe we were trained in that by our parents who tried their best, but trained us in perhaps conditional love. All of that can begin to fade away if we encounter a love that is eternal, a love that is infinite, a love that is both passionate. God has a crush on us, so to speak. I mean that in the best sort of way. And a love that is eternal. God will die for us in Jesus Christ, and He did, and He always will. And that is the type of eternal love that He's inviting us to. So what I am trying to do, and maybe you can do the same, is bring our hearts before the Lord. All of our hearts are traumatized or broken in some way, and we're clinging to our notions of what love we think will satisfy us. And God's going to crush us of that, so that we can be opened up to a purified, a selfless, a love that is all about the other and not about us. And that process, that heart transplant, so to speak, that conversion may take our entire life. But if we have kids, they're helping us already, because they require agape love. They require a gift and seeking nothing in return. I'll give you one little tidbit and then I'll conclude. That sometimes in marriage, the couples, they fell in love looking at each other. And then they get sick of each other after a while. And the beautiful gift is, if God should provide children, well, then they have another beautiful one to look at. They don't have to look at each other anymore. They can give themselves in love to that child or multiple children. And sometimes infertility comes, that's a cross of its own. But in God's plan, there's always something that will purify us. There's always some disillusionment that we'll get through. And there's always hope that if we are alive, we can experience a love that is patient and kind, that is not jealous, not pompous, not inflated or rude, a love that is eternal and is not based on feelings. Feelings are not bad, but they're not love. What is love? Love is a choice. God has chosen you to love, both in the crushed sort of a way, and even more so, in the cross-centered, eternal, life-giving love that is the only path to heaven.